everyone, Josh here again, and we are continuing the Building a House Guitar video series, the construction of a LG guitar for Paramount Guitars in Wisconsin. So if you watched my last video on joining the top and back, at the end of those videos I had the top glued up and I mentioned I was going to glue up the back. So now we see the results. Both of these, the top plate and the back plate, turned out very nicely as far as getting glued up. And now it's time to cut them to shape, do some thickness sanding, and we're going to be focusing on the back at this point, getting it ready for bracing and gluing the bracing on. So I've drawn a center line on the top here, and now it's simply a matter of drawing an outline of my shape. And so I have my mold here, and I just line it up with the center line on the top, or the back, sorry. And this is the point where I decide exactly what portion of the top and back is going to end up being the guitar. And for a set like this, where the grain is very generic, it really doesn't matter whether it's up at the top or near the bottom. I'll just position it fairly close to the top, and because this is a smaller body guitar, if I slide it up to the top, it leaves me some leftover pieces down here along the edge, which I can use for head plates or other trim pieces, either on this guitar or some other instrument. So I'm just taking a pencil and drawing the outline, and then what I'll do is I will go to the bandsaw. I don't know if you can see it on the video there or not, but I will take this to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut just a little bit outside that line. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my shape on the top, and then we'll go to the bandsaw. And there we have the top and back of the guitar cut to shape. And as I said, these plates will be slightly oversized, but that's what I want at this point. And looking very good. So we're going to set aside the top for now. Work on the top will continue in a later video, but I want to focus on the back. And the next thing to do is to thickness the back to final thickness before bracing. It's about double the thickness of what I want it to be when I brace it. So I'm going to go to the thickness sander now. I'll show you the thickness sander quickly if you're not familiar with that tool, and then I'll carry on. So for anyone who is not familiar with the thickness sander, I just thought I'd show you this quick. This is my Performax 1632. And I bought this when I was just starting out 12 years ago. It's not very big as far as thickness sanders go, but for someone, a small shop like myself, with the number of instruments I build, this machine works great. And a lot of people will be familiar with a thickness planer, which has knives or various cutters, and it's used to thickness boards or planks and to take off a lot of material. This machine is only meant to take off a very small amount of material. And so the way it works is you have a conveyor belt, which you use to feed the stock through, and then this drum here that spins, and I can change the grit of sandpaper on the drum. So nearly every part of the guitar goes through this machine at some point, with the exception of the neck. And so I'm just going to go ahead now and get the machine ready for thicknessing the back. Okay, so to summarize what you just saw me do in the videos there, I thicknessed the back on the thickness sander. You would have seen me stop and change the paper on the drum, and I use an 80 grit paper to take it down to thickness. I use 120 grit on the drum to clean up the 80 grit scratches. And then you saw me give it some palm sanding here with the random orbit sander. And I'm just sanding the inside at this point up to 220. I'm not worrying about how nice the outside is at this point, because that all gets taken care of when the final sanding is done on the body. So before the bracing can be glued on the back, I glue a center strip, and you'll notice that most acoustic guitars have a center strip that goes down the back. Often it's spruce, and the difference, or one thing unique about this, is that the grain is going crossways like this as opposed to the back grain that's straight up and down. And what the purpose of this is to just add some strength to the joint in the back. That back joint is plenty strong enough. I'm pretty sure that it would hold together even without a back strip, but it doesn't hurt to put a back strip on, and most people are used to seeing a back strip when they look on the inside of the guitar. So what I'm going to do is put some glue on this, and then I will position it with some tape, and then we will go to the Go Bar deck and I will clamp it up. Okay, so here we are at the Go deck, and in one of the other videos I'll give you a better view of the deck, but since I've already applied glue here, I need to get the clamps on this. So what it is it's a platform deck, and it's used for clamping all sorts of parts of the guitars, especially for the top and back. And I have these fiberglass rods that I simply... Okay, so yeah, I'd started to explain the Go deck, and had someone walk into the shop, so I had to stop the video, but I wanted to keep putting the clamps on. So I think as I was explaining a platform deck, I've got all these fiberglass rods, and simply by flexing the rod and inserting it into the deck between the top and bottom platform, you get the tension you need to clamp a whole variety of things. So I've got my Go bars in place. I got a piece of MDF I just use as a clamping caul here. You just try and space them out, get one every couple inches. There's a bit of glue squeezing out along the edge, which is good. I'm just going to peel this tape up now off the back. If tape stays on too long, it tends to bond to the wood a little stronger, and then may pull the wood fibers up. So there you have the back strip being glued on. I will let that dry. I probably won't have any more time to do anything with it till tomorrow, and then we'll get it cleaned up and the bracing glued on. Okay, so here we have our back with the center strip, back strip installed. And what I need to do now is just clean it up. There's a little bit of glue that's squeezed out along the edges, so I'm just going to take a chisel, clean that up, and then I'm going to sand the strip. Some people like to kind of carve them into a pyramid shape. Other people like to round them over. I prefer to use a smaller strip than a lot of other people use and just leave it square. I think it gives it a very clean look when it's all sanded up and on the inside of the guitar. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll get ready to fit the back bracing. So here the back strip is now all cleaned up. I've removed any scratches that were in it from when I when I made the back strips, cleaned up all the glue along the edges, and now it's time to fit some back bracing and then glue it up. Okay, so before I get on with fitting the back braces and gluing, I just want to talk for a couple minutes about bracing the back of a guitar and I guess some of the theory behind it. I'm building what's called a flat top acoustic guitar, but the reality is that most flat top acoustic guitars today, whether made in factories or by guys like myself, are not true flat tops, meaning that when the tops are glued up, they're not glued using flat braces. There's actually a bit of a dome that's glued into the top and back, and by adding a slight dome, you actually increase the strength of the wood. It gives the wood some direction to move with humidity changes. If the wood expands or if the wood contracts, it'll hold that shape. Whereas if it's flat, and especially if the guitar dries out, the wood tends to fall. So the back of the guitar tends to have a little bit more arch than the top, and the most common back radius is a 15-foot radius. And so what you see here on my bench is a 15-foot workboard or dish. And I have made this on my CNC machine, and it's a spherical radius. So if you were to take a 15-foot ball and take a piece out of the edge, you'd get a dish like this. And I have my back bracing here. This is the Lutz spruce bracing I talked about in the first video. The bracing is always quarter sawn, so if you look at the ends, the grain direction is running up and down for maximum strength. And what I've done with these back braces is on my router table, I've actually cut the bottom edge to a 15-foot radius. So the top edge here is flat, and if I was to put that in the dish, you'd see there's a gap underneath it. But if I flip it over, you'll see that the gap is gone. It fits to the 15-foot dish. And so this is how you get the arch in the back or the top of the guitar. When you glue the bracing on, you profile the brace, and then you glue everything in this dish, and it will give the back the 15-foot arch. So for those of you who aren't familiar with guitar making, this is how most guys will achieve the arch in the top and the back. Now, a lot of factories will use a similar method. They may have vacuum presses, that sort of thing, but I'm going to use my Go Bar deck, the same as what I use to glue the back strip on. Okay, so I'm ready to position the back braces, and I need to cut some notches in my back strip. And one thing that's unique about the LG is that I only use 3 back braces. With most of my guitars, I use a ladder bracing pattern, which just has the braces going straight across, and I usually use 4 braces, but because this is a very small body shape, both lengthwise and widthwise, I found that I really don't need 4. 3 is sufficient. And I just want to double check because the bottom brace here is just a little bit wider than the upper 2. And when it comes to positioning the braces, a lot of builders will have, a jig or something, so they're put in the exact same place every time. Now, I've always just positioned them by eye, and I'm looking for even spacing pretty much, taking into account that there's a block up here for the neck. And one of the reasons why I guess I don't put them in the exact same, or I don't have a jig for the positioning is often I'm doing cutaways, and the cutaways can be a variety of shapes depending on what the customer wants. And so sometimes I'm doing a round cutaway or a sharp cutaway, and depending on how deep the cutaway is, I will move the bracing pattern around accordingly. So there's no cutaway on this particular guitar, and I think somewhere right about there looks good for me. And so what I want to do now is make sure that the braces are square with the back strip. I was very careful to glue the back strip right on the center line of the back of the guitar. Make sure it's in line and square with that. And so what I've got here is just a small square and a razor blade. And so what I do is I just slide the square against the back strip. Once I have that in place, I just hold it there, and now I take my razor blade and I just make a little bit of a cut tight up against the back brace. And so now when I take that off, there's some little slits here, and I'll just put the razor blade in. Just push it right down to the back, and then I'm going to clean that out with the chisel. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark the rest of these. Okay, the other thing that I will do while I'm at this stage is just grab a pencil, and I don't need a lot of the extra brace that's overhanging the back. So I'm just going to make a line, and I will trim those off. Okay, so with a freshly sharpened chisel here, I'm just going to go ahead and pieces of the spruce will just pop out nice and neat. I just want to clean off any little bit of glue to expose a little bit of fresh wood for gluing the brace on. I just don't want any leftover glue from the back strip to be getting in the way. And I will just take a small piece of sandpaper, just clean up any little bit of fuzz. Okay, and if I marked everything correctly, then that should be a nice tight fit. Little to no gap on either side. And that's ready for gluing. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the rest of this off camera, and then we'll glue up the braces. Okay, so we're here at the Go Deck. I've got my 15-foot workboard on the bottom here, and the guitar back will get pressed into the workboard as it's glued. I've got my bracing. I'm using my trusty fish glue. And I'm putting just a thin bead of glue on the brace, spreading it around. Now, even though I was sure to cut those slots nice and square, things have a tendency to move out of alignment as soon as you put a clamp on them, especially if they're covered in slippery glue. So what I'm going to do is I just take a go bar. I'm going to put a single go bar in the center, and then I'm going to check the squareness of the brace. This one looks really good. And so I'm just going to make sure that the glue has a chance to grab. I'm just going to leave that one there for a second while the glue sets up before I put the rest of the go bars on. And so I'm moving on to the next brace. Same thing, thin bead of glue. I actually think I got a little too thin on this one. Okay, so same idea. One clamp in the middle. Check for square. Looks really good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put some more go bars on my first brace. Alright, that's the last one, so I'll just give it a quick check, pull out my flashlight here, and I'm just looking to make sure there's no gaps. Sometimes if a piece of dust or debris, a little chunk of wood or something was to get under the brace, it would prop it up a bit. There's a little bit of glue squeezing out. I will clean some of that up off camera, and the next video will be carving the back braces. So if you enjoyed this one, be sure to check out my YouTube channel to watch the rest of the videos in this series, as well as some other model overviews and behind the scenes stuff here at House Guitars. Thanks for watching.